I saw this tweet from Daniel Jose Older, one of the writers on the new Star Wars High Republic line. He wrote, "My new favorite argument is, Star Wars has betrayed me, a true fan, by having characters that don't look like me, so I will leave the fandom to those fake fans who, text notes, have always been fans when no one looked like them. Yes, and my new favorite argument is, Star Wars has offended me, a true fan, by having characters that don't look like me, so I will destroy the franchise for the fake fans who, checks notes, have always been fans even when no one looked like them." Uh, hmm. I won't say that High Republic is dead on arrival, but it is losing its heartbeat. I mean, this was their idea board, where diversity is listed twice and above things like character development, plot, and story elements. You know, the things that actually make you want to read novels. We already know Disney quadrupled down on the wokeness, so it's not a surprise that the new writers for this series would tweet this nonsense. Chuck Wendig's woke Star Wars books didn't bring in a new audience, it just turned off the old one. The same with the movies and the comics. You're not bringing in new people, you're just making the people who are already there go away. And they're doing this by taking a series that features nothing but aliens and trying to force those aliens to abide by modern progressive politics, which just doesn't work. It also ignores that no one has a problem with stories focusing on the myriad of non-human characters in the Star Wars universe. So for Older to make his argument, he must ignore species like the Chiss, Zabraks, Wookiees, Twi'leks, Hutts, Mon Calamari, and so on, and pretend that no one likes those species so he can whine about people rejecting him and his ilk cramming identity politics into Star Wars. He even admits this in his follow-up tweet, quote, "Someone the other day was in our mentions saying that Star Wars has always been diverse. I just don't see aliens as humans." Which, well, yes, I admit it. Oh look, he's trying to be clever. But when you're trying to be clever, you're not really being clever. You're just acting like a douchebag, which is apparently his intention. From The Guardian, quote, "I entered the writing work clearly and strategically to do this thing, to write these books, to get them into the world and fuck with people, and to generally fuck shit up." Oh, so you're one of those. Let me guess. You only write Hispanic characters. I'm gonna guess mostly Puerto Rican because you're from New York, or Black Hispanic mix. You add in lots of woke diversity like LGBTQ, MNOP plus asterisk hashtag up down left right hold A press start people, probably people's preferred pronouns, and lots of forced cursing, even when you're writing kids books. This is me guessing before I look up anything about this guy because I don't know, and really don't care, who he is, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right. So let's just check out his first novel, Half Resurrection Blues, which is about a guy named Carlos de la Cruz, an in-betweener, quote, partially resurrected from a death he barely recalls suffering after a life that's missing from his memory. Essentially, half-dead spirit detective. Not the most inventive idea, but urban fantasy does get very formulaic very fast. I decided to check out the reviews on Amazon, specifically the negative reviews. I do this because I want to see why people don't like the book, and I want to see if the criticism is fair. If it comes off as petty and trivial, then I ignore it. If people bring up the same points and their actual criticisms, then I'll check out the positive reviews to see why people like the book. And again, I'm looking for bias. Do you like it because it's well written, has interesting characters, world building, or settings, or did it just tick off your special interest boxes? Most of the positive reviews fall into the latter category. They praise Older for his multiculturalism, specifically that the main character thinks he's Puerto Rican. Damn, I'm good. And the description of Brooklyn and the inclusion of various musical and ethnic subcultures. The criticisms, however, are exactly what you think. From one review, "I was put off by the constant fixation on the color of everyone's skin, even down to the gradients. It's like the main character couldn't interact with anyone until he figured out their nationality/ethnicity and compared it to his own. It was odd, and it wasn't presented in a manner that had anything to do with the character's personalities, actions, or backstory. So it wasn't like he identified someone as Polynesian, for example, and then had that information play a part in how the character behaved. It was all just about where everyone fit on a brownness meter." Yeah, that sounds about right. This is what the wokeness begets. It's just bigoted nonsense masquerading as lived experiences and imagination. This is meant to fix the perceived lack of diversity in fiction. In his Guardian interview, Older complained about that lack of diversity in the Hunger Games. Quote, "He chalks it up to a phenomenal lack of imagination on the part of the author, and the laziness he feels that is designed to keep some people out of the picture. Yeah, because that's exactly what was happening. It couldn't be that Suzanne Collins wrote based on her own life experiences and created characters based around the type of people she grew up with. No, her explicit intent was to keep out the darkies from the future. Of course, when you write stories of the future or the past or the present that don't either feature white people or make them all evil, that's perfectly fine. He also said, quote, to be able to figure out all these crooked things about what you imagine the future will be like and not somehow have any folks of color do anything heroic or worthwhile in it? What happened? He asked. Where did they go? Well, where's the story set? What's the world like? Who are the main characters? What are their goals and interests? Are they or would they plausibly be anywhere near the things that would set off the story? Right now, scores of very important things are happening that 99% of the population have nothing to do with. Are we to pretend the same thing wouldn't happen in a fictional world? Those are the questions you should ask, not how come the main character isn't a minority. So it turns out that Older also wrote a Star Wars novel, Last Shot, which was a Han Solo and Lando Calrissian story set after the Return of the Jedi, and it jumps through different time periods. The reviews for that book were less positive, and even the positive reviews admitted that the book didn't read like a Star Wars novel and lacked editing. The complaints were similar to the ones from his first book, lots of cursing and weird sex scenes. But there were some additional problems. One person said, quote, it's full of modern slang and phrases that make it impossible to get immersed in a fantasy sci-fi setting. The author has written in an undertone of Han being an ignorant racist for some reason, and everything from Lando's perspective makes him look like a creepy sexual predator rather than a suave con man. There are also a few gimmicky characters like a slicing prodigy Ewok and a woke Gungan that add little and distract tremendously. They are both there to challenge stereotypes, but is handled in a way with no subtlety and in a way that just seems more like a fourth wall breaking joke than political statement. What's this person mean? Apparently there's an Ewok in the story who's a slicer, basically a hacker. Remember, this is set about 2 years after Return of the Jedi, so in 2 years Ewoks have gone from Stone Age tools to hacking the Matrix. Then the deal with the Gungan is that he speaks in regular basic, or what we call English, fluently, not in the stilted Gungan speak we saw in the prequels. Apparently Han makes fun of this or points out how Gungans usually speak, and this totally doesn't feel like Han's character at all. However, it does fit the typical woke progressive trope of every white man is racist. Another issue was a non-binary character Taka, a human from Alderaan who uses third-person group pronouns even though it makes zero sense in the context of Star Wars lore. Some people liked it, some people didn't. However, both agreed it created a specific problem, as one reviewer explained, quote, there's an annoying character, Taka, who is a human male but is referred to as they, them, their, which is not only annoying in its own right, but would confuse me because I would think they would be talking about more than one person. Like I said, even people who liked the book found it confusing, which is precisely why using third-person pronouns to refer to a single person who you know makes no sense. This is essentially what you can expect to see coming from Star Wars High Republic. They're going to tick off all the identity politics boxes while failing to tell an interesting story worth reading. The world building doesn't really exist because you're not dealing with people who actually like or even know the world. If they did, they would never suggest there should be dinosaurs in Star Wars. These are people treating the franchise as their private sandbox, and it shows. And this happens largely because these people usually don't have original ideas. They're so fixated on themselves and their politics that they can't see past them, so when they encounter people who can and who dislike the pandering and bigoted identity politics, all they've got are insults. So they behave like Daniel Jose Older, like an entitled, mediocre writer demanding his truth be heard by silencing everyone else, and then whining when someone calls him out for his shitty behavior, never realizing that the people he's trashing are the people who will buy his books. Here's a thought. Don't insult fans before the book comes out. You're trying to market the product. The goal should be to get the naysayers to be on your side, to try to convince them to give you a chance, not prove their misgivings right. But when you're wondering why my black ass, and any other real Star Wars fan, ain't buying Star Wars High Republic books, just remember how the writers insulted fans before the books even came out. And since you want to insult people, Danielito, let me say, with love, from a heart far, far away, go fuck yourself with a cactus.